Chapter 2163. Before Wu Dao's main body came to Scarlet Pheasant Valley, he had heard that the Valley Master of Scarlet Pheasant Valley had once entered an ancient ruin and obtained a treasure map. That was why his cultivation soared and he rose rapidly in this territory. If he was not wrong, the so-called treasure map should be this black remnant map. If one stared at this remnant map, it was extremely easy for one's mind to be immersed in it and be affected by the various violent, murderous, and destructive emotions within. Caught off guard, Wu Dao's main body nearly fell into it. Once one's mind was affected, the remnant map would release a strange power that would cause mysterious pitch-black fiend patterns to appear on the viewer's body. Those pitch-black fiend patterns had an extremely strong and violent ability to plunder heaven-earth essence chi. With the support of that power, one's cultivation speed would definitely soar. That was also the reason why the Valley Master of Scarlet Pheasant Valley could advance his cultivation in such a short period of time and even step into the true self realm, condense his Dao fruit, and become a true fiend. Although there was only a figure drawn on this incomplete black diagram, it was almost certain that it recorded an extremely high-quality demonic art. That fiend technique could even affect Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body sensed something unusual and broke free very quickly. Even the remaining pitch-black fiend patterns on his body were washed clean by his blood qi. Wu Dao's main body used Wu Dao as a furnace to nurture and refine cultivation techniques. However, he would not be truly restricted by those sutra cultivation techniques. His foundation was Wu Dao. The purpose of refining sutra cultivation techniques was to peer into the mysteries of heaven and earth from those sutra cultivation techniques and create his own Dao and Dharma. Wu Dao's main body would browse through many sutra cultivation techniques and even attempt to cultivate them. However, he would not be immersed in them and would not leave any traces on his body. If he wanted to create a Dharma that was different from the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend Daos, he could only succeed by breaking free from the influence of those three Daos. Wu Dao's main body's current combat strength was far stronger than Qinglian's main body. However, his cultivation realm had already reached a bottleneck and it was difficult for him to break through further. If he wanted to take another step forward, he had to create the next Dao technique first. In front of him was darkness, a bottomless abyss. He had to create his Dao before he could move forward. However, Qinglian's true body was different. Although the cultivation of Qinglian's true body was inferior to that of Wu Dao's true body, his future was clear. After the celestial immortal realm was the true One realm. After the true first realm was the Grotto Heaven realm. After the Grotto Heaven realm was the Emperor realm. The path of cultivation was like a towering mountain. In front of Qinglian's true body, there were already stone steps paved with the blood and bones of her ancestors. He only needed to walk up the steps. As for Wu Dao's true body, he had to rely on his own strength to carve out stone steps on this mountain peak before climbing up. In comparison, it would be easier for Qinglian's true body to reach the summit. Do you recognize this incomplete map? Wu Dao's main body asked through voice transmission. Tian Lang came from the upper realm and recognized the prison-suppressing cauldron. He knew many ancient secrets, so he was most likely to know the origin of this incomplete map. I don't recognize it, Tian Lang said. However, this incomplete map is quite old. It might be even older than me. It should record an extremely powerful fiend technique. This was the same as Wu Dao's main body's judgment. The fiend technique on the black incomplete map could plunder heaven-earth essence chi wildly and was extremely domineering. However, no matter what, it could not compare to Wu Dao's furnace. Wu Dao's furnace could refine an entire essence spirit mind directly. Of course, this black incomplete map was still of great help to him. If his main body wanted to take another step forward on Wu Dao's path, he would have to read a large number of cultivation techniques and sutras. The better and stronger the sutra cultivation technique, the more help it would be to him after Wu Dao's furnace refined it and comprehended its profundities. Back then, Su Zimo was in the Dao inheritance ground. It was also because he obtained many inheritances and accumulated a lot of experience. After 5,000 years of accumulation, he finally established his Dao and spread his martial arts across the world. Cough, cough. Right then, a series of heavy coughs sounded from the side, interrupting Wu Dao's main body's thoughts. Although Yen Beichen had escaped, he had suffered way too much over the years and could only survive until now by relying on the hatred in his heart. Now that he was free of danger, his heart was relieved and his hatred faded slightly. Instantly, his injuries erupted. Yen Beichen's face was frightfully pale as he coughed out a few mouthfuls of black blood. His life force was extremely weak and he was at the end of his life. In Yen Beichen's consciousness, his essence spirit was filled with cracks and dim. If this continued, Yen Beichen would die before long. Wu Dao's main body looked at Yen Beichen and frowned. Although his combat strength was strong and his methods were heaven-defying, he was helpless against Yen Beichen's injuries and was at a loss. He did not have any elixirs in his storage bag, nor did he need them. Furthermore, even if he did have any elixirs, they would not be able to save Yen Beichen. Even the 7 Dawn Immortal Ginseng could only heal Shura's body but not his essence spirit. Be it the upper or lower worlds, elixirs that could heal the essence spirit were way too rare. However, Yen Beichen's injuries were way too severe. "Brother Yen," Wu Dao's main body called out softly with a heavy heart. "Fu." As though he could already foresee his ending, Yen Beichen pretended to smile casually. "Zimo, you don't have to worry. If I die, so be it. Now that I'm in the netherworld, I can go visit Pianran if I have the chance." Wu Dao's main body sighed internally. The death of Qin Pianran was a huge blow to Yen Beichen. All these years, if not for the fact that he had been searching for the ethereal netherworld and the mysterious 6 paths of reincarnation, he would not have ascended and would have died in Tianhuang mainland a long time ago. However, Wu Dao's main body found out from the Heavenly Wolf that Yen Beichen would not be able to find Qin Pianran even if he died and entered the netherworld if he did not cultivate to the Kongming realm of the true self realm. If the two of them did not have sufficient cultivation realms, their memories of their previous lives would definitely be wiped and they would reincarnate after entering the 6 paths of reincarnation. The fate of the two of them in this lifetime was already severed. Whether Yen Beichen lived or died, that would not change. Right then, the cry of a little beast sounded from not far away. Immediately after, a white shadow darted over at an extremely fast speed. It circled around Yen Beichen's feet and let out a whimper. It was a white ferret that was the length of an arm and its fur was as white as snow without any other colors. The white ferret's pitch-black eyes shone with tears and were filled with worry. "It's you." Yen Beichen looked at the white ferret and wanted to bend down to stroke its cheek. However, it aggravated his injuries and he knelt on the ground with a bitter laugh. "I met this white ferret after I ascended. It has some spirituality." Yen Beichen murmured softly, "To think that you didn't leave even after I was in trouble." After pausing for a moment, Yen Beichen said, "It's a pity that I have to leave first this time round." The white ferret whimpered softly as though it was crying and complaining. It was heart-wrenching. "Master, I have an idea that might be able to save him." Right then, the voice of the Heavenly Wolf sounded from the silver mask in the consciousness of Wu Dao's main body. Chapter 2164. Speak. Wu Dao's true body opened his mouth and spat out a word. Skywolf said, "I know a cultivation technique that's very suitable for this person to cultivate." Wu Dao's true body squinted slightly and asked, "Can Big Brother Yan's injuries be healed by cultivating this cultivation technique? Can it even heal the injuries on the primordial spirit?" He had refined countless cultivation techniques and abilities, but he had never heard of such a miraculous cultivation technique. Just now, although the black map fragment had a mysterious origin and the demonic cultivation technique on it was extremely powerful, it couldn't save Yen Beichen. Skywolf said, "Shura's injuries can definitely be healed by cultivating this cultivation technique. But his injuries on the primordial spirit can't be healed. This cultivation technique can only temporarily suppress the injuries on his primordial spirit and save his life." "You mean, if he cultivates this cultivation technique, Big Brother Yan's injuries on the primordial spirit can still erupt?" Wu Dao's true body frowned and asked. Skywolf said, "That's true. The hidden dangers of the primordial spirit still exist, but at least it can save his life for now. We can make plans in the future. At this point, Sky Wolf paused slightly. Wu Dao's true body sensed this abnormality and said coldly, "You haven't finished speaking." Sky Wolf hesitated for a moment and stammered, "This cultivation technique isn't complete. I only know half of it." Wu Dao's true body's tone changed and his eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Sky Wolf felt the intention of Wu Dao's true body and was so frightened that his mind trembled, afraid that Wu Dao's true body would release 4 more balls of flames to torture him. Sky Wolf hurriedly explained, "I really only know half of it. Back then, my master only taught me half." Wu Dao's true body was silent and didn't say a word. The more silent he was, the more panicked Sky Wolf became. He continued, "This is a demonic cultivation technique that my master created back then, the demonic Buddhist sutra. It's divided into 2 parts and is comparable to a forbidden technique. It's extremely powerful. I only know the demonic Buddhist chapter. The hatred in Shura's heart is monstrous, and hatred is a kind of obsession. Even if his body is at the end of its life, he can still cultivate the devil execution chapter. The stronger the obsession in the heart, the greater the power of this demonic technique." Wu Dao's main body fell into deep thought. Back in Tianhuang mainland, Demonist Ji had once told him that stubbornness was fiendish. As for this demonic art, the foundation of cultivation was obsession. The strength of the Hatred Sutra was based on the hatred in one's heart. Hatred was just a type of obsession. From this perspective, the magic execution chapter was indeed much more brilliant than the Hatred Sutra. Just as Sky Wolf had said, Yen Beichen had the hatred scripture as his foundation. His heart was filled with hatred, which made it the most suitable for him to cultivate the magic execution chapter. However, even though Yen Beichen was cultivating the fiend governance chapter, his essence spirit still had a fatal flaw that could erupt in the future. "Who was your master?" Wu Dao's main body suddenly asked. Sky Wolf only submitted to Wu Dao's main body when it was close to ascending. Therefore, although Wu Dao's main body imprisoned it for thousands of years, he did not interact much with it. At the mention of its master, Sky Wolf remained silent for a long time before saying slowly, "My master back then was the greatest emperor lord of the heavenly realm in history, Bo Sun." It was indeed an emperor lord. Wu Dao's main body had already speculated about that previously. Emperor Lord Bo Sun was shockingly talented and was proficient in both Buddhist and fiend dharmic formulations. He created the Fiend Buddhist Sutra and cultivated the 3-corpse grand art, creating 3 clones, the Buddha body, 7 emotions body and 6 desires body. All of them were at the Grotto Heaven realm and possessed heaven-defying combat strength. He refined one of his clones that controlled the 6 desires and created an emperor weapon, the K2 saber, that contained the power of the 6 desires. Only negative karma could burn the 6 desires and wield the K2 saber. He refined another clone that controlled the 7 emotions and created another emperor weapon, the Mask of Mara, that contained the power of the 7 emotions. Only obsession could sever the 7 emotions. Hearing this, Wu Dao's main body seemed to have thought of something, but he did not say anything. At the mention of Emperor Lord Bo Sun, Sky Wolf's tone was filled with pride as it continued. Emperor Lord Bo Sun severed the 7 emotions and 6 desires and refined them into 2 great emperor weapons. His combat strength soared and he was invincible in the demon realm. Soon, he unified the demon realm and became the first demon emperor of the demon realm. After that, Emperor Lord Bo Sun's 3rd clone, the Buddha body, stepped into the emperor realm. The main body and the Buddha body merged, and the demon body and Buddha body became one. He was not only the demon emperor of the demon realm, but also the Buddha emperor of the pure land of bliss. He was only half a step away from becoming a great emperor. Sky Wolf did not conceal its voice when it said this. Beside him, Yen Beichen and the White Ferret were shocked. Wu Dao's main body also nodded secretly. Buddha and Demon Dao were 2 completely different Daos. The fact that both the demon body and the Buddha body could step into the emperor realm was already beyond imagination. The demon body and the Buddha body could even merge into one. Talent, luck, courage, fortuitous encounter, and will were all indispensable. The demon body was the Buddha, and the Buddha was the demon body. After unifying the demon realm, Emperor Lord Bo Sun conquered the Pure Land of Bliss. He wanted to unify the demon realm and the Pure Land of Bliss, and in the end, unify the entire heavenly world and become the ruler of the heavenly world. At this point, Sky Wolf suddenly paused. After a moment of silence, Sky Wolf said in a desolate voice, "Unfortunately, he failed in the end and died in the Pure Land of Bliss." The Mask of Mo Luo, the emperor weapon refined by Emperor Lord Bo Sun, is the silver mask on my face? Wu Dao's main body suddenly asked. Sky Wolf laughed bitterly. "I'm just a small artifact spirit in the Mask of Mo Luo. I was lucky enough to survive, but I was severely injured and ended up in the lower realm." "You're not a small artifact spirit," Wu Dao's main body said indifferently. "You're Emperor Lord Bo Sun's 7 Emotions doppelganger." The 7 Emotions doppelganger was originally a Grotto Heaven realm king. Emperor Lord Bo Sun refined the 7 Emotions doppelganger into the Mask of Mo Luo and made it into an emperor weapon. In fact, it was to help you step into the emperor realm in another form. Sky Wolf was silent and did not refute. He had hidden this matter and did not expect Wu Dao's main body to see through it. "In my previous life, I was indeed the 7 Emotions doppelganger," Sky Wolf said calmly. "However, you guessed wrong about another thing. Back then, because of a battle, the 6 Desires doppelganger and I were severely injured and died. Emperor Lord Bo Sun then refined my body into the Mask of Mo Luo. My shattered primordial spirit was refined into the artifact spirit of this emperor weapon, and I was reborn." Although the 7 Emotions doppelganger and Emperor Lord Bo Sun came from the same source, the two were completely different. Bo Sun had Buddha nature and demon nature, and he cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Whether it was the 7 Emotions doppelganger or the 6 Desires doppelganger, they were completely different from Bo Sun's thoughts. For example, Qinglian's main body and Wu Dao's main body had the same thoughts. The two main bodies were Su Zimo and Araki Takashi. They were inseparable. Later, the 7 Emotions doppelganger was refined into the Mask of Mo Luo. His primordial spirit died and was reborn as an artifact spirit, and he was the current Sky Wolf. After his rebirth, Sky Wolf was a completely new life and was no longer the 7 Emotions doppelganger. Therefore, he called Emperor Lord Bo Sun his master. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2165. Wu Dao's true body was proficient in Buddhism and was no stranger to the name Bo Sun. That name was mentioned many times in the ancient books of the Buddhist sections. Ancient fiend Bo Sun was the oldest, strongest, and most terrifying devil of the Buddhist sects. He was in existence from the same era as the Buddha. Legend has it that Bo Sun descended when the Buddha was born. He was born with the Buddha. Legend has it that when the Buddha was comprehending the Tao under the Bodhi tree, Bo Sun led 8 billion demons to obstruct the Buddha's cultivation and cause a war between the Buddhists and fiends. That was an extremely ancient war. Even in the upper world, no one knew how many eras ago it happened. Perhaps it was when the upper world was first created and all living beings multiplied and grew wildly. No one knew about the situation of that war. However, the outcome was that the Buddha attained the Tao and Bo Sun lost miserably. Back in Tianhuang mainland, he was still confused when he read the records. Now that he thought about it, the war between the Buddhists and fiends back then was most likely a battle between two peak imperial lords. In the end, the Buddha became a great emperor and Bo Sun was defeated. If the Buddha was the supreme ancient Buddha of the Buddhist sects, Bo Sun would be the most ancient fiend supremacy. However, the owner of Heavenly Wolf dared to call himself Bo Sun, the same name as the most ancient fiend emperor. It was clear how ambitious and bold he was. Unfortunately, this imperial lord who was half a step away from becoming a great emperor still failed and died in the Pure Lands. Wu Dao's true body pondered in silence and recalled what Heavenly Wolf said just now. Heavenly Wolf was the weapon spirit of the Mask of Mo Luo. As for the Mask of Mo Luo, it was created by the 7 Emotions clone. Only obsession could sever the 7 emotions. That was why Heavenly Wolf knew about the fiend obsession section created by Emperor Bo Sun. His goal was to control the Mask of Mo Luo. Everything made sense now. Back in Tianhuang mainland, Wu Dao's true body felt that Heavenly Wolf had a powerful background. One of the reasons was because of the silver mask. More importantly, Heavenly Wolf's bones were tough and it was burned and imprisoned by his 4 flames for thousands of years before finally submitting. Now that he thought about it, it was understandable. In his previous life, he was the 7 emotions clone of Emperor Bo Sun, a fiend king. Later on, he was reborn as an artifact spirit. He was also an emperor armament. Naturally, he had his own pride and was unwilling to submit to others. The difference between Wu Dao's original body and his former master was indeed too great. Big brother Yen, you heard it too. Now that things have come to this, you can only survive by cultivating the devil governing chapter. Wu Dao's main body was relieved after learning about the origin of the magic execution chapter. Only then did he speak up to persuade Yi Qingyu. Yen Beichen remained silent. The aura of death lingered around his body, and his will was depressed. In the depths of his heart, he no longer had any desire to live. Wu Dao's main body sighed in his heart and said solemnly, Heavenly Wolf told me that the netherworld does exist in the upper realm. It's not just you. I also want to go to hell to take a look and resolve a matter that's weighing on my mind. In his heart, he was still thinking about Ji Yaoshua. Really? Yen Beichen's eyes lit up, and he seemed to have gained some strength in his body. He struggled to stand up and asked, if the underworld really does exist in the upper realm, where is it? How do I get there? In the mask of Mo Luo, Heavenly Wolf suddenly sneered. Wu Dao's main body knew that there must be something in this. He hurriedly sent a message with his divine sense, making Heavenly Wolf shut up. Pausing for a moment, he tried saying, This? I don't know either. No matter what, as long as I'm alive, there will always be a chance. Not bad, not bad. Yen Beichen nodded, a trace of light flashing in his eyes. He said to himself, a place like hell is definitely not a place that anyone can enter. There must be a requirement for cultivation realm. I want to cultivate. If a demon king can't do it, then a demon emperor. If a demon emperor can't do it, then I'll cultivate to a great emperor. One day, I'll be able to enter hell and find Pianran. At this point, Yen Beichen looked at Wu Dao's main body and said, I'll learn. Alright. Wu Dao's main body moved his divine sense and had Heavenly Wolf teach Yen Beichen the Devil Obsession chapter. Yen Beichen had the hatred scripture as his foundation, and the hatred in his heart was strong. Cultivating the Devil Obsession chapter seemed to be aided by the gods and entered a state of epiphany. He sat on the ground in the ruins. The hatred in his body and all kinds of obsessions turned into wisps of black qi that circled around his body. The wounds on his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the cracks on his nascent spirit were connected by the wisps of black qi that were as thin as hair, as if they were sewing the cracks together. The white mink seemed to have realized that Yen Beichen was not going to die. At a critical moment in his cultivation, it became extremely quiet and lay obediently beside Yen Beichen. Wu Dao's main body took a few steps back and asked with his divine sense, What were you laughing at just now? I was laughing at his ignorance, Heavenly Wolf said sarcastically. Heavenly Wolf said in a mocking tone, Since ancient times, I've never heard of anyone who could find the location of the underworld, nor have I heard of any living person who could enter the underworld. Wu Dao's main body frowned slightly. There's only one way to enter the underworld. Heavenly Wolf paused and chuckled, It's a dead end. If he dies, he will naturally go to the nether hell. As for the living, he can forget about entering the underworld. It has nothing to do with cultivation realm. Are you sure? Wu Dao's main body asked. Heavenly Wolf said, Are the ancient emperors strong? Are their cultivation realms high? I've lived for so long, but I've never heard of any emperors who entered the underworld when they were alive. Wu Dao's main body was silent. According to Heavenly Wolf, even if the underworld existed, Yen Beichen and Qin Pianran could not reunite. Qin Pianran had already reincarnated, and the two of them were still separated by life and death. He naturally would not say these words to Yen Beichen. After all, this was Yen Beichen's hope of survival, and Wu Dao's main body did not want this little bit of hope to be destroyed. Yen Beichen was temporarily out of danger. Wu Dao's main body also began to think about the next path. For him, the most important thing at present was not to continue plundering resources, but to create the next Wu Dao technique. He needed to go into seclusion to comprehend the Dao. This was an extremely long process. It could take tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. It could even be that he would never be able to create it. But no matter what, Wu Dao's main body could only continue on. From the moment he set foot on this path, he was destined to be unable to turn back. Walking the great Dao alone. Seeing Yen Beichen's encounter, Wu Dao's main body's state of mind underwent many changes. He originally did not want to establish any force. But at this moment he had an idea. He wanted to establish a force in the demon domain. This way, he would have a greater chance of finding the old friends of Heaven Wasteland domain who had ascended, and also obtain more information. Moreover, the greater the force, the more manpower he had, and the more cultivation techniques and secret techniques he could collect. This was extremely important for him to create the next Wu Dao technique. But now, he had to go into seclusion to comprehend the Dao, and had no time to spare. The matter of establishing a force and expanding territory had to be handed over to a trustworthy and powerful person who could turn the demon domain upside down. Yen Beichen could naturally be absolutely trusted. After cultivating the demon ruling chapter, his cultivation realm and battle strength would also increase rapidly. As a general who had fought on the battlefield, Yen Beichen was completely competent in fighting bloody battles. But if he was in charge of a force, he was not very suitable. Yen Beichen's heart was entangled with hatred and obsession. Many times, he was unable to make rational decisions. This candidate, Wu Dao's main body's heart moved, and he already made a decision. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2166. Serious, have you ever thought about being truly reborn? Wu Dao's true body suddenly asked. Sirius paused, then cautiously asked, Master, you mean, Wu Dao's true body said, I'll let you be reborn with an independent life and body. This, Sirius couldn't believe it. Although Emperor Bo Sun had used a different method to rebirth him, he was only an artifact spirit. He didn't have a body of his own. His destiny was to protect the Mask of Mara. Even if he had such thoughts, Emperor Bo Sun would never allow it. The Mask of Mara was the arch-artifact. If he became an independent life, it would lose its artifact spirit, and its power would be greatly reduced. Sirius didn't agree immediately. He was worried that this was only Wu Dao's true body testing him. Sirius pondered for a while, then reminded, if the Mask of Mara doesn't have an artifact spirit, it may never be able to recover to the level of the arch-artifact. I don't care. Wu Dao's true body said indifferently, if I can't become the arch, the Mask of Mara is useless to me. If I become the arch artifact is dispensable. Wu Dao's foundation was his body. If his true body could become the arch, his body would be the strongest the arch artifact. The Mask of Mara could help him hide his identity even more. Sirius's heart burned with passion at this point. If he could break free from the Mask of Mara and possess a body of his own, he would be able to live independently. This was the realm he'd always pursued. When he'd fallen to the lower realms, he'd always been by the Blood Demon Dao Lord's side. It wasn't that he didn't want to take over the Blood Demon Dao Lord's body. It was that even the Blood Demon Dao Lord wouldn't be able to withstand his power. If he possessed the Blood Demon Dao Lord, the Blood Demon Dao Lord's body would immediately crumble, and the laws of the lower realms would be triggered. Therefore, Skywolf was waiting for the Blood Demon Dao Lord to ascend so that he could possess him or find another suitable body. However, later on, Su Zimo appeared out of nowhere, preached the Dao to the world, imparted martial arts to all living beings, and even condensed an anomaly like Wu Dao's original body to completely suppress and imprison him. The Heavenly Wolf was unwilling to give in. Apart from the pride in his heart, he also wanted to escape from this place one day, possess a fleshly body and be reborn. Later on, he saw Wu Dao's true body deceive heaven and earth, his strength continuously rising in the lower realm. His potential wasn't small, and he might have some accomplishments in the future. Thinking about it again, Sirius chose to submit because its former master had already passed away. And now, such an opportunity was right in front of him. "Are you really willing to let me possess your body and be reborn?" Tian Lang asked again, still in disbelief. "Not bad." Wu Dao's true body said, "Since you are called Tian Lang, there is a suitable body for you here." As he spoke, Wu Dao's true body waved his sleeves, creating a huge pit in the ruins not far away. Lying inside was a huge wolf demon with short silver fur all over its body. Moon-devouring heavenly wolf. This was a demon beast brought by the immortal slaughtering pavilion's pavilion master. It was a stage 9 mystic immortal. Just now, in the chaotic battle, Wu Dao's true body had directly shattered its primordial spirit. This wolf demon's body was covered in bloody wounds, but at least its body was intact. The Heavenly Wolf clan was the king of the wolf clan. And the moon-devouring heavenly wolf bloodline was the strongest bloodline of the Heavenly Wolf clan. Tian Lang was indeed tempted. If he had been imprisoned by Wu Dao's true body before, he naturally wouldn't have taken a fancy to this body. But now, if he entered this moon-devouring heavenly wolf's sea of consciousness, he would be able to reincarnate and obtain a true rebirth. With his means, it wouldn't be difficult to change the bloodline of this moon-devouring heavenly wolf and make it stronger. Tian Lang still didn't agree immediately. At this moment he was extremely cautious. "Master, what do you need me to do?" Tian Lang asked humbly and carefully. Tian Lang didn't believe that Wu Dao's true body would be so kind to let him be reborn in such a way. One had to know that if he was reborn in such a way, it would be extremely risky for Wu Dao's true body. Because if he occupied the moon-devouring heavenly wolf's body, he could cultivate. As long as his cultivation speed was faster than Wu Dao's true body, surpassing Wu Dao's true body by a major realm, he could try to erase the restrictions that Wu Dao's true body had planted on his primordial spirit. This way, he would regain his true freedom. In his previous life, he was the 7 Emotions clone and was once one of the strongest demon kings in the demon domain. In this life, he was also an emperor weapon spirit and knew many cultivation techniques. In terms of cultivation experience, he was much richer than Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body didn't even deduce the next step of Wu Dao's cultivation technique. And now that he was reborn, although his cultivation realm was lower, he definitely had a chance to surpass Wu Dao's true body in the future. Of course, he definitely couldn't reveal such thoughts. "I need you to do a few things." Wu Dao's true body went straight to the point. "First, after you are reborn, write down all the cultivation techniques and secret techniques that you know in your previous life and this life, including the demon execution chapter and the 3 corpse technique." Of course. Tian Lang agreed without hesitation. It didn't matter even if he gave all these cultivation techniques and secret techniques to Wu Dao's true body. Tian Lang knew that Wu Dao's true body couldn't cultivate directly. He wanted to use these cultivation techniques and secret techniques to deduce the next step of Wu Dao's cultivation technique. But how could it be so easy to deduce Wu Dao? Tian Lang sneered in his heart. He even suspected that the achievements of Wu Dao's true body might stop here. Wu Dao's true body said, "Second, after you are reborn, you have to cultivate as soon as possible and increase your combat strength. Integrate all the Xian forces in the vicinity and establish a new force. In the early stages, I will help you accomplish this. After that, this force will be handed over to you to control." Tian Lang's eyes lit up. Even without the instructions of Wu Dao's true body, he would cultivate crazily and increase his cultivation level. All these years, all the sects and forces in the vicinity of this territory had heard of the name of Wu Dao's true body. In this battle, the Scarlet Pheasant Valley was destroyed. If Wu Dao's true body appeared, it would definitely be a piece of cake to integrate all these Xian forces. Chapter 2167. What's the name of this faction? Heavenly Wolf asked. Heaven Baron Sect. Wu Dao's true body pondered for a moment before he said a name. Master, leave Heaven Baron Sect to me. You can go into seclusion without worry. One day, I'll make it the most terrifying and powerful sect in the demon realm. Heavenly Wolf was extremely confident. He was not spouting nonsense when he said that. He had the qualifications and confidence to do so. Back then, he was the demon king of 7 emotions who ruled over a region. He was extremely clear about how to expand, devour, and unite forces to dominate. He had once reached the peak. Now, he was just going to do it again. The larger the territory, the more cultivation resources there were, and the higher the chances of obtaining cultivation techniques and secret skills. It was not just Wu Dao's true body. Heavenly Wolf and Yen Beichen also needed a large number of cultivation resources like elemental spirit stones to improve their cultivation. Wu Dao's true body handed over most of the power of Heaven Baron sect to Heavenly Wolf for it to expand. Apart from cultivation resources, there was another purpose. It was for his old friends who ascended from Heaven Baron sect. Wu Dao's true body did not know who else from Heaven Baron sect had ascended to the Heaven Realm and Demon Realm apart from Yen Beichen. However, the larger the territory he ruled, the higher the chances of reuniting with these old friends. The reason why this faction was called Heaven Baron sect was to attract his old friends. If any of his old friends heard the name of this sect, they might rush over. Of course, the upper world was too big. It was also possible that no one else had ascended here apart from Yen Beichen. There's one more thing. Wu Dao's true body continued. In Heaven Baron sect, be it living beings of the upper world or living beings of the lower world, you can't treat them differently. This, Heavenly Wolf was a little hesitant. In his eyes, even living beings of the upper world were ants, let alone living beings of the lower world. Wu Dao's true body ignored Heavenly Wolf's resistance and continued. Things like digging elemental spirit ores and planting spirit fields will be arranged as sect missions. Living beings of the lower world will also receive sufficient rewards after completing the missions. Seeing Wu Dao's firm attitude, Heavenly Wolf could only agree. Although this was a little troublesome, it was not impossible. Go ahead. Wu Dao's divine sense moved and a ball of light flew out of the Mo Luo mask. This ball of light cut through the void and entered the moon-devouring Heavenly Wolf's forehead. After a while, the wolf's eyes suddenly opened. Joy, excitement, and agitation surged in his eyes. Sky Wolf channeled the demonic scripture, and the surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi surged towards his body, healing his injuries. Not long after, Sky Wolf was able to stand up and howl at the sky, venting the emotions in its heart. Yen Beichen and Sky Wolf continued to heal and cultivate. The interaction between the man and the wolf's aura had actually reached the boundary of a breakthrough, and they could take another step forward at any time. Wu Dao's main body stood silently at the side. In fact, Sky Wolf's thoughts could not be hidden from him. However, for now, Heavenly Wolf could not break free from his restraints. He could also use Sky Wolf to develop and strengthen his forces. Moreover, as long as his cultivation level was higher than Sky Wolf's, the latter would definitely not be able to escape from his control. After Yen Beichen and Sky Wolf broke through, the two of them could jointly take charge of the Heaven Baron sect. Sky Wolf would be the patriarch, and Yen Beichen would be the deputy patriarch. At that time, he could hibernate and comprehend the Tao in peace. For Wu Dao's main body, the most important thing was to deduce the next dermic formulation. At the 9th level of the Fate Wheel realm, the Heaven and Earth Furnace could indeed smelt and kill a true demon at the consolidation stage. However, there were 4 levels of the true demon realm: Consolidation, Heavenly Being, Kongming, and Insightful Void. If he encountered a Heavenly Being or Kongming true demon, Wu Dao's main body would not be able to defeat him. Only by stepping into the next level would the power of the physical body and bloodline increase. The power of the Heaven and Earth Furnace would also soar and reach the true power of a supreme divine power, or even surpass it. Divine Firmament Immortal Region, Qiankuan Academy. Outside the sect, mountains, waterfalls, lakes, and courtyards. It had been almost 1,000 years since Su Zimo's closed-door cultivation. Over the years, Su Zimo had never shown up, nor did he participate in any of the sect's activities or missions. He did not even participate in the outer sect competition held by the Academy a year ago. He had enough elemental spirit stones in his storage bag, enough for him to cultivate for 2,000 to 3,000 years. During this period, Princess Chi Hong had come to look for Su Zimo more than a dozen times, but she did not manage to meet him even once. After nearly 1,000 years, the courtyard did not seem to have changed much. However, for some reason, the plants and spirit herbs around the courtyard were growing very well. Even many of the spirit beasts kept in the outer sect of the academy ran over here. On this day, the door of the training room in the courtyard slowly opened. A figure walked out. He was young, dressed in a green robe, and had delicate features. He was surrounded by a scholarly aura, and his expression was calm. Su Zimo had come out of closed-door cultivation. Originally, he thought that breaking through from level 6 Earth Deity to the peak of level 7 Earth Deity would be his limit. However, when he inherited the Supreme Mysterious Spirit Big Dipper Sutra, the stellar elemental chi that he had accumulated in his body was too large. The cultivation environment of Qianquan Academy was better than Su Zimo had imagined. Qinglian's real body was cultivating here. With the help of the Forbidden Secret Book, she could achieve twice the results with half the effort. After nearly 1,000 years, Su Zimo's cultivation had reached the peak of level 8 Earth Deity. He only needed an opportunity to break through to level 9 Earth Deity. This time, Su Zimo had come out of closed-door cultivation to look for this opportunity. Secondly, the date of the 10,000-year meeting was approaching. He did not want to miss the Earth Board battle. To him, the Earth Board could be the perfect opportunity. Thirdly, Wu Dao's real body had already ascended to the demon region. The first thing Su Zimo did when he came out of closed-door cultivation was to communicate with Wu Dao's real body and establish a connection. Wu Dao's real body wanted to deduce Wu Dao's real body. Su Zimo passed down all the cultivation techniques and secret skills that Qinglian's real body had collected over the years to Wu Dao's real body. He did not even keep the Forbidden Secret Book, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, from the prison's suppressing cauldron. The more powerful and rare the cultivation technique was, the more precious the mysteries within it would be. It would also be of great help to Wu Dao's real body. After nearly 1,000 years of closed-door cultivation, Su Zimo's cultivation had not only increased rapidly, but he also had a deeper understanding of the many secret skills that he had mastered. Su Zimo looked at the wildly growing plants around him and frowned slightly. With a thought, he pinched his fingers and slashed casually. All the vegetation in the vicinity had been cut in half at the waist. The plants were too abundant and would easily attract attention. Fellow Taoist Su, you're finally out of closed-door cultivation. A scarlet ray of light sped over and stopped in midair. Looking at Su Zimo, who was not far away, she shouted happily. Princess Chi Hong had arrived. Greetings, Princess. Su Zimo nodded slightly and cupped his fists with a smile. After nearly 1,000 years, Princess Chi Hong's cultivation realm did not change much. She was still a level 9 Earth Deity. Ah, you've already cultivated to level 8 Earth Deity? Princess Chi Hong could sense Su Zimo's cultivation realm. She could not help but widen her eyes and exclaim. Chapter 2168. To cultivate from a stage 6 Earth Immortal to a stage 8 Earth Immortal in 1,000 years, such a cultivation speed was terrifying. Even someone like the Red Rainbow Infanta, who had unlimited cultivation resources, was unable to do so. In the past 100,000 years, the only person in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain who had such a terrifying cultivation speed was Yun Ting. After Chi Hong recovered from her shock, she quickly regained her composure. Let's go to Yuan Ling Pavilion and take out the elemental spirit stones you have accumulated over the years. Chi Hong Infanta called out. The outer sect disciples of the academy would be given 1,000 elemental spirit stones every year even if they did not complete any missions. This would continue for 1,000 years. If they could reach the heaven origin realm within 1,000 years and become an inner sect disciple, they would naturally be able to comprehend the inner sect disciples' rewards. If they could not break through within 1,000 years, they would have to complete some missions assigned by the academy in order to obtain elemental spirit stones. For the past 1,000 years, Su Zimo had been in seclusion. His annual elemental spirit stones were stored in Yuan Ling Pavilion. After a rough calculation, he had 1,000,000 elemental spirit stones, which was not a small number. Su Zimo and Princess Chi Hong soared into the air and headed towards Yuanling Pavilion. On the way, Chi Hong Infanta smiled and said, "Since you have cultivated to a stage 8 Earth Immortal, it doesn't matter that you did not participate in the Outer Sect competition." "Why do you say so?" Su Zimo asked. Chi Hong Infanta said, "This Outer Sect competition is not very interesting. It is nothing more than a competition between Outer Sect disciples to prepare for the upcoming 10,000-year meeting. Every Outer Sect competition will select 20 Outer Sect disciples to participate in the 10,000-year meeting to compete for a ranking on the Earth Board. Although you did not participate in the Outer Sect competition and are not in the top 20, with your means, I believe the Academy will definitely allow you to accompany them." 1,000 years ago, during the Immortal Sect selection in the Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, Su Zimo, who was only a Stage 6 Earth Immortal, had single-handedly wiped out more than 100 executioner guards of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and became the champion of the Immortal Sect selection. The memory of Su Zimo's terrifying strength and methods in that huge battle was still fresh in Princess Chi Hong's mind. Even a level 6 Earth Immortal was like this. Who in the outer gate of the Academy could contend with Su Zimo, a level 8 Earth Immortal? As they chatted, the two of them arrived at Yuanling Pavilion. At the entrance of Yuanling Pavilion, Deacon Chin of the outer court was patrolling nearby. He just so happened to see Su Zimo and his face sank, and a trace of gloominess flitted past his eyes. Deacon Chin stepped forward and stopped Su Zimo. Su Zimo had some impression of this deacon with the surname Chin. Back then, when they had just joined the Outer Sect, it was Honor Guard Chin who had received them. He was a harsh and sarcastic person. According to Princess Chi Hong, Deacon Chin was only an outer court disciple all those years ago, and he only became an outer court deacon because he had no hope of entering the inner court. If one accepted this task, they could also receive a reward of Spirit Essence Stones. "Deacon Chin, what's the matter?" Su Zimo asked calmly. Deacon Chin looked askance at Su Zimo and said, "What are you going to Yuanling Pavilion for?" "To retrieve the Spirit Essence Stones that I have deposited in Yuanling Pavilion all these years." Su Zimo did not hide his intentions and said straightforwardly, "Take it." Deacon Chin took out a storage bag and tossed it to Su Zimo. Su Zimo opened the storage bag and took a look. He said expressionlessly, "The amount is wrong. There are less than 200,000 Spirit Essence Stones in this storage bag. I deserve 1,000,000. "1 million?" Deacon Chin sneered and said, "You have not even shown your face since you joined the Academy, let alone completed any missions. What right do you have to take 1,000,000 Spirit Essence Stones? Let me tell you, 200,000 Spirit Essence Stones is already a great gift." "Nonsense." Princess Chi Hong could not bear to listen and said, "The sect has a rule that one does not need to complete any missions to receive Spirit Essence Stones for 1,000 years after joining the Academy. Princess, this has nothing to do with you. It's best if you don't interfere." Deacon Chin seemed to be wary of Princess Chi Hong as he said that. Su Zimo was confused. He had never interacted with Deacon Chin before and had no grudges with him. Why would this person suddenly target him? If there was any opponent in the Academy, it could only be the Moonlight Sword Immortal. However, there was no way the Moonlight Sword Immortal would know that he was the Divine Dragon on the Dragon Abyss Star. The Moonlight Sword Immortal might not even remember him when they met again. "You should have pocketed the remaining 800,000 Spirit Essence Stones, right?" Su Zimo glared at Deacon Chin and suddenly spoke. "What did you say?" Deacon Chin seemed to be enraged as his voice rose sharply. He turned and glared at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. The conflict here gradually attracted the attention of many cultivators and disciples in the surroundings as more and more people gathered. Deacon Chen's face flushed red as he pointed at Su Zimo's nose and gritted his teeth. "I'm telling you, I can kick you out of the Outer Sect and make you a servant of the Academy based on your slanderous words earlier on. Su Zimo, as an Outer Sect disciple, how dare you spout nonsense and slander an Outer Sect deacon? How should you be punished?" Right then, a figure stood out from the crowd and hollered in a righteous manner. "Lu Wenbin." Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. 1,000 years ago, he had met this person during the immortal sect selection and even fought against him. At that time, Lu Wenbin attacked consecutively in an attempt to stop Su Zimo from paying a visit to the 4 immortal sects. However, he failed consecutively and lost face. Could it be that Lu Wenbin bore a grudge because of that? All of a sudden, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he thought of a possibility. What was Lu Wenbin's ranking in the outer sect competition? Su Zimo asked with his spirit consciousness. 20th. Princess Chi Hong replied. Upon hearing that answer, Su Zimo sneered in his heart. Lu Wenbin must be worried that Su Zimo would snatch Su Zimo's spot to participate in the 10,000-year meeting after he came out of seclusion. That was the reason why he joined forces with Deacon Shin to stage today's scene. Deacon Shin, you don't have the qualifications to enforce the rules in the outer sect. Su Zimo walked towards Deacon Shin slowly with a cold gaze. His body emitted a terrifying aura that made it hard for one to breathe. Hand over my spirit essence stones. Su Zimo took a step forward and extended his palm. He glared at Deacon Shin like a Vajra and hollered in a voice that was as loud as a bell. When he saw that, a glint flashed through the depths of Lu Wenbin's eyes. His arrangement seemed to be full of loopholes. However, he had witnessed Su Zimo's temperament and methods during the immortal sect selection. In his opinion, Su Zimo could not endure such grievances. Given Su Zimo's resolute nature, he would definitely fight it out if he encountered such an obvious obstacle. One had to know that private fights were not allowed in Shankuan Academy. If one wanted to fight, no matter who it was, they had to go to the Academy's sword discourse arena. If there was a private fight, the disciples' rank would drop in a light case. In severe cases, they might even be expelled from the Academy. As long as Su Zimo made a move, he would win. When he saw that Su Zimo was enraged and was walking into his trap step by step, Lu Wenbin's heart burned with uncontrollable excitement. Chapter 2169. Fellow Taoist Su, don't be rash. Princess Chi Hong reminded him hurriedly. Right now, there were more and more cultivators gathered in front of Primordial Spirit Pavilion. If Su Zimo were to hurt anyone in front of everyone, he would be punished even if he was in the right initially. As though he did not hear anything, Su Zimo arrived in front of Deacon Shin. His eyes shone brightly with a bone-chilling killing intent as though he was about to strike at the next moment. His cultivation realm was at level 8 Earth Immortal and his essence spirit realm was at level 1 Heaven Immortal. This was a complete mental suppression. In front of Su Zimo, Deacon Shin felt a pressure as heavy as Mount Tai. His chest felt suffocated and he could not breathe at all. Under such immense pressure, Deacon Shin's heart was filled with fear and panic, and his mind was in a mess. When he saw Su Zimo's eyes light up and his body lean forward as though he was about to lunge at him, he could not help but recall some information about Su Zimo. Su Zimo was decisive in killing. During the immortal sect selection, he dared to kill more than 100 executioner guards right under the watchful eyes of Duke Yuanzhua. This person was fearless and fearless. He was a complete lunatic. Not good. Deacon Shen's heart skipped a beat. This person wants to kill me. He wanted to turn and escape, but he realized that he was restrained by an invisible force and could not move. Deacon Shen growled and released his blood chi with all his might. Conjuring hand seals with both hands, he released a great mystic power that struck towards Su Zimo. This was a completely subconscious reaction. When Deacon Shen saw Su Zimo attack, he could not sit still and could only retaliate. In his opinion, as long as he could defend against Su Zimo's attack, the other cultivators would be able to react and capture Su Zimo. However, the moment he released his great mystic power, he saw a hint of mockery in Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo was still standing on the spot motionlessly and did not attack him at all. I've been tricked. Deacon Shen's heart sank. He wanted to stop, but it was too late. The distance between the two of them was too close. As soon as this great divine ability erupted, it had already struck Su Zimo's chest, emitting a muffled sound. Seeing this, Lu Wenbin frowned. Initially, everything was going according to his plan. However, at the last moment, Deacon Chen attacked Su Zimo as if he was possessed by some supernatural force. In this way, Su Zimo had every reason to fight back. Deacon Chen, how dare you attack a fellow disciple without permission? Princess Qihong was the first to step forward and berate loudly. The moment Deacon Chen made his move, he knew that things had gone south. Deacon Chen looked at the surrounding cultivators and wanted to explain himself. At this time, Su Zimo smiled and said, Deacon Chen, you used a great technique on me, so I'll return a palm strike. It's fair. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Zimo suddenly attacked. Deacon Chen had just seen Su Zimo raise his hand, and before he could react, a tremendous force slapped him on the cheek. There was a buzz in his mind. It was as though his head was struck by a heavy stone hammer as he heard the sound of bones cracking and felt a sharp pain on his cheek. The next moment he lost consciousness. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo raised his hand and slapped Deacon Chen in a seemingly casual manner. Deacon Chen's figure flew dozens of feet away like a kite with a broken string before landing in the bushes motionlessly. No one knew if he was dead or alive. What a strong power! Did you guys notice? Even though Deacon Chen's great divine ability struck Su Zimo, he seems fine and his expression is normal. He withstood a great divine ability with his body? How is that possible? Many cultivators whispered. What's going on? Not far away, a stern-looking old man flew through the air with a powerful aura. Descending from the skies, he arrived in front of Essence Spirit Pavilion and surveyed the surroundings. Greetings, Elder Teng. Many cultivators cupped their fists and bowed when they saw the old man. This was the disciplinary elder of the outer sect and was a rank 1 heavenly immortal. His status was much higher than Deacon Chen, and he truly had the authority to enforce the law. The Scarlet Rainbow Princess walked forward and pointed at Deacon Chen, who was not far away. Elder Tang, you're wise. Not only did Deacon Chen embezzle the spirit essence stones of the outer sect disciples in Essence Spirit Pavilion, he even fought in the academy. In the end, he was taught a lesson by someone else because he wasn't skilled enough. Frowning slightly, Elder Teng waved his sleeves and circulated his essence chi, dragging the unconscious Deacon Chen before him. Everyone was speechless when they saw Deacon Chen's bloodied face and half of his face that was caved in. They looked at Su Zimo with wary gazes. This guy was way too ruthless. He slapped Deacon Chen to this extent. Elder Teng channeled his divine ability and healed most of the injuries on Deacon Chen's face before waking him up and tossing him in front of him casually. You were the one who embezzled the spirit essence stones of the outer sect disciples and fought in the academy? Elder Teng glared at Deacon Chen and asked in a deep voice. Aye. When Deacon Chen woke up and saw that the disciplinary elder was alerted, his heart sank as he explained hurriedly, Elder Teng, it's not my fault. Lu Wenbin was the one who asked me to make things difficult for him. Elder Teng swept his gaze towards Lu Wenbin, who was in the crowd. Don't spout nonsense. What has this got to do with me? Lu Wenbin's expression darkened and he had no choice but to defend himself. Deacon Chen went all out as well and grit his teeth. Lu Wenbin, don't pretend to be innocent. Do you dare to swear that this has nothing to do with you? Lu Wenbin was speechless and his face flushed red. Su Zimo watched from the side and could not be bothered with the dogfight between the two of them. As long as Elder Teng enforced the law impartially, the two of them would definitely not be able to escape punishment, and there was no need for him to step in. When Elder Teng saw this, he already knew what was going on. Qin Xing, Lu Wenbin, the two of you have violated the rules of the academy. You will be demoted and sent to the servant area for a few years. Elder Teng waved his hand. Behind Elder Teng, other deacons immediately stepped forward and were about to bring Deacon Chen and Lu Wenbin away. Elder Teng, it's not my fault. It's all Lu Wenbin's fault. Deacon Chen panicked and explained loudly, I fought because I was tricked by this Su Zimo. I thought that he attacked first, so I retaliated, Elder Teng's expression changed as he glanced at Su Zimo, who was not far away. Elder Teng's gaze lingered on the sect badge on Su Zimo's waist and withdrew after taking a closer look at the name on it. You. Elder Teng pointed at Su Zimo and said calmly, You fought someone in the academy without permission. You will be sent to the servant area for a few years. Su Zimo squinted and his expression darkened. This elder Ting did not intend to make such a decision initially. It was obvious that he had changed his mind at the last minute after knowing Qin Nan's identity. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2170. Su Zimo didn't expect that after he entered Qiankuan Academy and went into seclusion for 1,000 years, he would still be targeted. However, he still couldn't figure out where this hostility came from. Why? Princess Qi Hong felt that it was unfair for Su Zimo and said, Deacon Qin and Lu Wenbin violated the Academy's rules first. What wrong did Su Zimo do? The Academy's rules forbid disciples from fighting privately. Just this point alone is enough to make him a servant for a few years to teach him a lesson. Elder Teng waved his hand and said coldly, Take Su Zimo, Qin Sheng and Lu Wenbin away. Send them to the servant area to train for a few years before returning. Princess Qi Hong was about to speak when Elder Ting stared at her and said, Princess, although you have a noble status, don't forget that this is Qiankuan Academy and not the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom. If you dare to obstruct the Academy's law enforcement, you will also be punished. Princess Qi Hong frowned and was furious. She gritted her small canine teeth and stared fiercely at Elder Teng. She was reprimanded in front of everyone. As a princess, she had never suffered such grievances. However, she knew that the people in the Academy didn't care about her status as a princess. If she persisted, Elder Teng would definitely expel her from the outer sect and send her to be a servant. If this matter were to spread to the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom, she would become the laughingstock of the Flaming Sun Immortal Kingdom's royal family. Princess Qi Hong's face turned green and white. She wanted to speak up for Su Zimo, but she had some misgivings. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded from the side, Princess, thank you for speaking up for justice. Let me handle this matter. Princess Qi Hong looked to the side and saw Su Zimo's calm and gentle gaze. She didn't know why, but she gradually calmed down. Su Zimo's words made her feel better as well. Without saying anything else, she pursed her lips and nodded. Su Zimo turned to look at Elder Teng and said slowly, Elder Teng, if I attack you in the Academy now and you retaliate, wouldn't that be considered a private fight and a violation of the Academy's rules? The surrounding cultivators shook their heads when they heard this. This was a direct challenge to the authority of the enforcement elder. Although everyone knew that Su Zimo was completely innocent in this matter, Su Zimo had just joined the sect and was an outer sect disciple's disciple. Moreover, many cultivators heard that Su Zimo came from the lower world. With such a status, he dared to challenge the law enforcement elder. He was simply asking for trouble. Suddenly, Elder Ting laughed and looked at Su Zimo with a gaze filled with contempt and mockery. He said proudly, Su Zimo, do you know what a law-enforcing elder is? If you dare to attack me, it's equivalent to challenging the rules of the Academy. I have every reason to kill you on the spot. Is that so? Su Zimo chuckled and said, If I attack you, you won't even have a chance to retaliate. The surrounding crowd became restless. Isn't this guy a little too cocky? I don't think he's cocky. There's something wrong with his head. He's just an outer sect disciple who ascended from the lower world. How could he be qualified to challenge the enforcement elder? Besides, Elder Teng is a heaven immortal. How dare an earth immortal act so presumptuously? He's really courting death. Many cultivators looked at Su Zimo as if they were looking at a dead man. Most of the outer sect cultivators had only heard of Su Zimo's name. It was their first time meeting him and they did not have any relationship with him. Although they knew that Su Zimo was being targeted, they did not feel any pity for him. Ha! Elder Ting laughed out of anger and said with a murderous aura, Capture him and expel him from the Academy. Killing you will only dirty my hands, you're just a servant. You've offended the Dajin Immortal Kingdom and there's no need for me to do anything. If Su Zimo dares to resist, kill him on the spot. Su Zimo said calmly, Elder Teng, I'm afraid you can't make the decision to expel me from the sect. Su Zimo naturally had his own plans for being so calm. The 10,000-year meet was about to begin, and Qiankuan Academy placed great importance on the Earth roll. Unless he had committed a heinous crime, they would definitely not expel him from the academy at this time. Su Zimo was not worried that this matter would blow up. In fact, he hoped that this matter would blow up and spread to the inner sect. Deacon Chen and Lu Wenbin were the ones who made things difficult for him in the first place. Elder Teng was unfair in enforcing the law. If this matter blew up, he would be able to find the source of the hostility and resolve this matter. Seeing how calm Su Zimo was, Elder Teng could not help but sneer. No wonder you're so fearless. So, someone is standing up for you. Let me tell you, even if Yang Ruoxu comes today, she won't be able to protect you. Do it. Elder Teng hollered. The deacons behind him rushed over and swarmed over. Just as a huge battle was about to break out, a massive spirit consciousness pressure descended from midair and froze those deacons on the spot. Elder Teng, what's gotten you so angry? A voice sounded slowly. The next moment, Yang Ruoxu stepped through the air and descended in front of Spirit Essence Pavilion. Greetings, Senior Brother Yang. Many outer sect disciples and deacon elders bowed one after another. Even Elder Teng's eyes flashed with a hint of panic as he forced a chuckle. Although he was an elder of discipline, he was only an outer sect elder and could not control Yang Ruoxu. Over the years, Yang Ruoxu's cultivation speed was lightning fast and his status in the inner sect rose rapidly as well. For a few immortal sect selections, the sect even sent Yang Ruoxu to recruit Paragon disciples from all over the world. It was clear how highly they thought of him. Of course, Yang Ruoxu's combat strength could not be considered as the top in the inner sect, and he was only ranked in the top 10. Under normal circumstances, he would not be chosen for something as major as the immortal sect selection. Many cultivators did not understand why Yang Ruoxu was so highly regarded. Until the immortal sect selection 1,000 years ago, when Emo Qing had appeared and protected Yang Ruoxu, she had almost fought with the zither immortal Meng Yao. After that immortal sect selection, there were many rumors about Emo Qing and Yang Ruoxu. It was difficult to distinguish between the truth and the lies. However, if Yang Ruoxu really had the support of the painting immortal Emo Qing, then it made sense why he was so highly regarded in the inner sect. The news about Emo Qing and Yang Ruoxu not only shocked the godly firmament celestial region, but also the entire continent of the 9 clouds. Even in the academy, many cultivators did not dare discuss it openly, but there were many speculations in private. Even though the zither immortal Meng Yao had returned empty-handed during the immortal sect selection, the rumors had already spread. She had already achieved her goal. Chapter 2171. Yang Ruoxu was still wearing a white robe. His face was chiseled and his skin was slightly tanned. His gaze was deep as he stared at Elder Teng sternly. Su Zimo felt relieved when he saw Yang Ruoxu. He had a good impression of this senior brother of the inner sect. Since Yang Ruoxu was also from the lower world, Su Zimo naturally felt a sense of closeness to him. Furthermore, it was Yang Ruoxu's integrity and perseverance that allowed Su Zimo to escape the pursuit of Commandery Prince Yuanzhua during the immortal sect selection and enter the academy. Given senior brother Yang's character, he would definitely not stand by and do nothing if he knew the truth of the matter. This time, before Su Zimo and Elder Teng could speak, Princess Qi Hong stepped forward and explained the matter in a few words. The rights and wrongs of the matter were not complicated. Elder Teng, as the disciplinary elder of the outer sect, your decision earlier on was inappropriate. Yang Ruoxu said, in Qiankuan Academy, if we don't enforce the law, how can we convince the masses and make the disciples of the academy feel at ease? Elder Teng chuckled awkwardly and wanted to argue. However, his aura weakened the moment he met Yang Ruoxu's gaze. He lowered his head and avoided Yang Ruoxu's gaze. Yang Ruoxu cultivated the Righteous Spirit Sutra and his gaze was filled with righteous spirit. He was unyielding and even dared to confront the zither immortal, Meng Yao. Elder Teng's cultivation realm was slightly lower than Yang Ruoxu's. Coupled with the fact that he was afraid, he did not dare to make a sound after being stared at by Yang Ruoxu. I'll let you off this time on account that you might have been muddle-headed. Yang Ruoxu's eyes shone brightly. He stared deeply at Elder Teng as if he could see through all his secrets. He said, "Otherwise, based on the mistakes you've made this time, it's enough to strip you of your position as the enforcement elder." Yes. Elder Teng was sweating profusely. Just now, his aura was gone and he lowered his head obediently. "Thank you for your forgiveness, Senior Brother Yang. Just now, I was indeed muddle-headed. Yang Ruoxu, you're so mighty." At this moment, a mocking voice came from the sky not far away. Soon after, a figure descended. Many cultivators were shocked when they saw who it was. They bowed and shouted, "Greetings, Senior Brother Yang." The man wore a blue gown and carried a long sword on his back. His black hair was tied up behind his back, and his eyebrows were like swords. The most conspicuous thing about this person was his pair of large hands. His fingers were slender and fair, and he was born with a pair of sword-wielding hands. After Su Zimo entered Cosmos Academy, he went into seclusion for 1,000 years. He didn't have much contact with the people in the academy, so he naturally didn't know this person. Red Rainbow Countess transmitted with her consciousness, "This is an inner sect disciple, Pang Yu. He has quite a background and is a sword cultivator. It said that his combat strength is ranked in the top 5 of the inner sect. He might even be stronger than Senior Brother Yang Ruoxu." Su Zimo nodded. Just now after Pang Yu's arrival, Elder Teng, who was bowing with his head lowered, swept away his subservient attitude and puffed out his chest. He was in high spirits. By the looks of it, there was a high chance that Elder Teng's backer was the inner sect disciple, Pang Yu. However, Su Zimo could not understand why he would have a feud with Pang Yu when he did not know the latter. Why would Pang Yu target him? Senior Brother Pang. When Yang Ruoxu saw Pang Yu, he cupped his fists expressionlessly. In the cultivation world, most people address their juniors or senior brothers based on their cultivation realms. If 2 people were of the same cultivation realm, they would be addressed based on how long they had been in the sect. Although both of them were grade 9 heavenly immortals, Pang Yu had been in the sect longer than Yang Ruoxu. "Junior Brother Yang, you're merely an inner sect disciple as well. How can you change the position of the disciplinary elder of the academy as you wish?" Pang Yu glared at Yang Ruoxu and said coldly, "Indeed, I can't change it." Yang Ruoxu's expression was unchanged. "However, if someone were to be unfair and report it to the academy, I'm sure Elder Teng won't be able to keep his position. It's not up to you whether you can keep it or not." Pang Yu scoffed coldly. "Junior Brother Yang, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You're from the lower world and so is Su Zimo. That's the reason why you're trying to protect him. This is the academy and you're not the number 1 in the inner sect. You're not in a position to call the shots in the academy. The innocent knows their innocence." "Senior Brother Pang, you're exaggerating," Yang Ruoxu replied indifferently. "Since there's such a huge dispute, why don't we report it to the academy and let the elders decide?" When he heard that, Elder Teng panicked. He was the clearest about this matter. Su Zimo was completely innocent in this matter. If he reported it to the academy, he would be the one to be punished. At that time, he might not even be able to keep his position as the disciplinary elder as Yang Ruoxu said. Pang Yu's expression darkened. He knew in his heart that if he reported this matter to the academy, he would only be humiliating himself. Right then, Elder Teng's eyes darted around before he suddenly said, "Senior brothers, please don't ruin the harmony between us. The matters of the outer sect are trivial and don't affect the big picture. In my opinion, let's forget about this matter." Elder Teng said with a smile. After pausing for a moment, he changed the topic and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away. "However, I have a personal grudge with Su Zimo. Just now, this man boasted shamelessly that if he were to fight with me, I wouldn't even have a chance to retaliate." All the cultivators present heard that loud and clear. "We heard it." Immediately, some cultivators in the crowd cheered loudly. Elder Teng's expression was stern as he said in a deep voice, "It's fine if you think that I'm unfair and disrespect my status as the disciplinary elder. However, I've cultivated for many years and will not allow you to belittle me as such." Su Zimo raised his brows slightly and looked at Elder Teng. "So, what do you want, Elder Teng?" This is a personal grudge between you and me and has nothing to do with the rules of the academy. I don't need to suppress you as the disciplinary elder. Elder Teng said righteously, however, since you've spoken rudely, we'll fight it out on the sword discourse arena. Shameless. When she heard that, Princess Chi Hong cursed internally. Many cultivators in the surroundings revealed looks of disdain as well. Even though Elder Teng's words were beautiful, he was a level 1 heavenly immortal while Su Zimo was only a level 8 earth immortal. The difference between the two of them was a major realm. It was obvious that he was bullying the weak, but he made it sound dignified. Yang Ruoxu frowned slightly and said, Elder Teng, the difference in your cultivation is too great. There's no need for this competition, right? It's fine if we don't want to, Elder Teng said with a smile. If Su Zimo comes over obediently and apologizes to me, I can forgive him. If he doesn't apologize, he'll have to take responsibility for every word he says. Elder Teng was shrewd and ruthless. He had long seen that with Su Zimo's temperament and way of doing things, it was impossible for him to apologize in public. Since you've spoken arrogantly, you'll have to be punished. Elder Teng looked at Su Zimo and sneered. This is the academy. On the sword discourse arena, a fight to the death is not allowed. Don't worry, I'll spare your life, but I'll teach you an unforgettable lesson. Chapter 2172. That's a good idea. Pang Yu smiled and nodded. It's not that I don't give you a choice. You can either apologize or go up to the sword discourse arena and be taught a lesson. Elder Teng's plan could be said to be foolproof. Even if Su Zimo apologized in front of everyone, he could say that Su Zimo was insincere and repeatedly made things difficult for him. Fellow Taoist Su, it doesn't matter if you apologize to him. You won't lose anything. Seeing Su Zimo remain silent, Princess Chi Hong thought that he was conflicted and couldn't make up his mind. Hence, she sent him a voice transmission with her spiritual consciousness. At that moment, the commotion had attracted almost half of the outer sect disciples of the academy. In the eyes of everyone, although apologizing in front of everyone was a little ugly and would damage one's reputation, it was still much better than being beaten up by a heaven immortal on the sword discourse arena. Under everyone's gaze, Su Zimo suddenly laughed. Sure, let's go up to the sword discourse arena. Su Zimo said with a smile. The surroundings went silent for a moment before bursting into a commotion. Is Su Zimo crazy? This person is arrogant and conceited. You could tell during the immortal sect selection. I reckon that he hasn't suffered before. He's asking for it. He thinks that he can save his reputation by not apologizing, but he doesn't know that it will be even more embarrassing if he is beaten up by Elder Teng. Many outer sect disciples shook their heads. These outer sect disciples had only heard of Su Zimo's name from the news of the immortal sect selection and did not have a deep understanding of him. In fact, many people thought that the rumors of the immortal sect selection were exaggerated. Yang Ruoxu also frowned slightly and looked at Su Zimo with an extremely serious expression. He asked in a deep voice, Are you sure you want to go up to the sword discourse arena? According to the rules of the academy, private fights between disciples of the same sect could only be carried out on the sword discourse arena and outsiders were not allowed to interfere. On the sword discourse arena, mystical abilities and mystic arts could be released at will. However, life and death battles were prohibited and the use of essence spirit secret techniques were not allowed. A fight between essence spirits was too dangerous. Even if one won, their essence spirit would be severely injured. The academy did not want any disciples to be injured. Even so, if Elder Teng really wanted to teach Su Zimo a lesson, he could have dealt a heavy blow and shattered Su Zimo's body. Earth immortals could regrow their limbs, but they could not regrow their limbs from a single drop of blood. If one's physical body was damaged to the point where it was impossible to repair, it would be equivalent to losing one's original body and having to find another. This was no longer a matter of losing face. I'll give it a try. Su Zimo shrugged slightly, looking relaxed and unconcerned. Such a reaction naturally caused the outer court disciples to curl their lips in disdain. However, Yang Ruoxu did not show any disdain. With a serious expression, he reminded again, Don't think that the difference between the two of you is only 2 levels. You have to understand that the gap between the two of you is the difference between an earth immortal and a sky immortal. Celestial immortals can. Enough. Before Yang Ruoxu could finish, he was interrupted by an impatient Pang Yu. Junior brother Yang, you're not the one going up the sword discourse arena. Why are you so nervous? Pang Yu sneered. Either you apologize honestly, or you fight on the sword discourse arena. Don't be so wishy-washy. Although Yang Ruoxu did not finish his sentence, Su Zimo knew that he wanted to remind him that celestial immortals could use divine powers. This was also the greatest trump card of celestial immortals. However, although Su Zimo was a level 8 earth immortal, his primordial spirit had already reached the level of a level 1 celestial immortal. He could also use divine powers. Yang Ruoxu was interrupted by Pang Yu and did not continue speaking. However, he still looked at Su Zimo. Su Zimo nodded slightly and gave Yang Ruoxu a reassuring look. Yang Ruoxu felt relieved. He had seen Su Zimo's power and potential with his own eyes during the Immortal Sect selection. In the Coiling Dragon Valley, no one thought highly of this scholarly young man. Even the 4 of them did not think that this green-robed scholar could survive under the blades of more than 100 ferocious executioners. However, in the end, it was proven that they were all wrong. Therefore, Yang Ruoxu believed in Su Zimo. However, he still did not know how Su Zimo, who was only an earth immortal, could deal with the power of a celestial immortal and their divine powers. Let's go. Su Zimo's expression was relaxed. He seemed to be talking to himself. This is going to be an unforgettable lesson. I'm really looking forward to it. Ha! Elder Ting looked up and laughed. Don't worry, your wish will come true soon. Whether in the outer or inner sect, there were many sword discourse arenas. The so-called sword discourse arenas were not simply sparring, but sparring between disciples of the same sect. Soon, the group arrived at the sword discourse arena closest to the outer sect's Yuanling Pavilion. The commotion here even attracted some inner sect disciples who were passing by. The crowd grew larger and larger. In the academy, every sparring at the sword discourse arena would attract the attention of many. This time, it was the most special, because the 2 people on the sword discourse arena had a huge gap in cultivation. One was an earth immortal and the other a celestial immortal. One was an outer sect disciple and the other was an outer sect disciplinary elder. The sword discourse arena was made from a huge rock. The space was large enough to allow the 2 people who were sparring to freely use their divine abilities and secret techniques. Everyone, how many rounds do you think Elder Teng will need to win? That's not necessarily true. It mainly depends on how many rounds Elder Teng wants to win. If Elder Teng wants to win quickly, he will release his divine powers in the first round. That Su Zimo will lose. Even when a cat catches a mouse, it won't bite it to death. I think Elder Teng wants to play with this person on the sword discourse arena for a while. The surrounding cultivators discussed animatedly. Su Zimo and Elder Teng had already stepped onto the sword discourse arena and stood facing each other. Elder Teng looked at Su Zimo and could not suppress the excitement in his heart. He said with a smile, "Actually, I'm doing this for your own good. If I teach you a lesson in the academy, you will at least be able to keep your life. If you were as arrogant as you outside the academy, you would have died a long time ago." Su Zimo ignored Elder Teng. Instead, he looked in the direction of Yang Ruoxu and Pang Yu and asked loudly, "Can the sword discourse begin?" As long as you step onto the sword discourse arena, it can begin at any time. Elder Teng laughed heartily. Before his laughter ended, Su Zimo suddenly vanished from his line of sight. "Watch out." The next moment, Pang Yu's voice exploded in his ears. At that moment, his heart seemed to have stopped beating. Elder Teng did not have time to think about why Su Zimo suddenly vanished. He channeled his essence spirit with all his might and conjured hand seals with both hands, wanting to release his divine powers. Initially, he wanted to hold back. However, at that moment, he only wanted to survive. However, even with Pang Yu's reminder, he had lost the initiative. Su Zimo used the True Dragon's 9 flashes and broke through a distance of 100 feet. As though he teleported, he descended beside Elder Teng and slapped the latter's back. Bang! Flesh exploded and a blood mist filled the air. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 2173. Although Elder Teng was a Tier 1 heavenly immortal, his physical body was no match for Qinglian's true body. Qinglian was a 10th grade creation realm cultivator and had lightning bone forging. Even without using her bloodline power, she could take on any Earth grade Khanate Dharma treasure head-on. Elder Teng's physical body could not take it at all. After Su Zimo closed in, his body was shattered into pieces with a single palm strike. Su Zimo's primordial spirit could, of course, release a supreme mystique. But there was no need for that. He would use the simplest and most direct method to finish off Elder Teng. He would not waste time with him. Just as he had said, if he attacked, Elder Teng would not even have a chance to fight back. Su Zimo's attack was too sudden. Apart from Yang Ruoxu and Pang Yu, who were peak heavenly immortals, everyone else was stunned. It was only when Elder Teng's physical body was destroyed that the crowd exclaimed. Heavens, Elder Teng was shattered by a single palm strike. That's too fast. Teleportation? It can't be teleportation. There's no mystique aura in the Sword Discourse arena. Besides, Su Zimo is only an Earth immortal. He can't teleport. Elder Teng was too careless. He didn't even have time to teleport before his physical body was shattered. Around the Sword Discourse arena, there was a commotion. Yang Ruoxu glanced sideways and sneered. Senior Brother Pang, outsiders are not allowed to interfere in a battle in the Sword Discourse arena. Just now, you warned him. That's already against the rules. Oomph. Pang Yu knew he was in the wrong. He snorted and did not refute. He did not expect Su Zimo to attack so fiercely. It was like a thunderbolt that did not give his opponent a chance to fight back. Even with his warning, Elder Teng could not escape in time. Yang Ruoxu said in a low voice, I think there's no need for this battle to continue. The outcome has been decided. That might not be the case. Pang Yu said, Elder Teng was just careless and lost the initiative. How can a puny Earth immortal like him fight against a heavenly immortal? Heavenly immortals can use blood rebirth. As long as their primordial spirit is not destroyed, even if their physical body is destroyed, they can reconstruct it in the blink of an eye and recover their combat strength. Yang Ruoxu said, if it weren't for the fact that life and death are not allowed on the Sword Discourse arena, Su Zimo's palm would have directly landed on Elder Teng's head. Right now, Elder Teng's body didn't explode, but his primordial spirit was destroyed. Actually, it was just as Yang Ruoxu had said. The outcome of this battle had already been decided. However, Pang Yu was unwilling to give up and did not call for a halt. On the Sword Discourse arena, Elder Teng was even more furious. He wanted to use his blood to be reborn and use his full strength to suppress Su Zimo and regain his face. After Su Zimo shattered Elder Teng's body with a single palm strike, he stopped and did not continue his pursuit. However, his gaze shifted, and he saw that Pang Yu had no intention of stopping them. On the other side, Elder Teng's soul core had fled to a corner of the Sword Discourse arena and was circulating rebirth from blood to restore his body. He understood that Qin Shi hadn't given up at all. The corners of Su Zimo's mouth curled up slightly, and a cold smile appeared on his face. The speed of rebirth from blood was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Elder Teng's body had been completely rebuilt. Just as Elder Teng was about to activate his primordial spirit, he suddenly felt a blur before his eyes as if something had flashed past. In the next moment, he felt a huge sense of danger enveloping him, causing his hair to stand on end, and he shuddered. Oh no! Elder Teng shouted in his heart. Following that, a sharp pain came from his back again. The angrier Yang Ruoxu was, the happier he was. Pang Yu shrugged slightly and said with an innocent expression, Junior Brother Yang, there are some things that you can't say. When did I instruct Elder Teng or tell him to use an Essence Soul secret skill to kill Su Zimo? Yang Ruoxu gripped his fists tightly and gritted his teeth, merely glaring at Pang Yu without saying anything. Pang Yu had a magnanimous expression as he said leisurely, everyone witnessed the duel at the Sword Discourse arena today. All the cultivators present can testify for me. Yang Ruoxu's heart was filled with rage and he even wanted to attack Pang Yu immediately. However, he knew that there was no reason for him to attack. Pang Yu was way too smart. Just now, Pang Yu did not explicitly instruct Elder Teng to use an Essence Soul secret skill or kill Su Zimo in his words. He did not leave any evidence for Yang Ruoxu to use against him and killed Su Zimo with the help of Elder Teng. Pang Yu. Yang Ruoxu grit his teeth and said coldly, "I know that some of you in the inner sect have always looked down on me and tried all means to suppress me. This matter was not a secret. It was not only the inner sect, even the outer sect disciples could tell. Yang Ruoxu was born in the lower world and was ostracized in the academy. In addition, he was an upright person and did not know how to be flexible. Naturally, he was gradually isolated by many inner sect disciples. However, Yang Ruoxu relied on his own efforts to grow in adversity. He went against the flow and gradually rose to become one of the top 10 inner sect disciples. Later, Yang Ruoxu represented the academy and went to the Coiling Dragon Mountain Range to host the Immortal Sect selection and recruit disciples. Although that made him somewhat famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal realm, he attracted even more hostility in the academy. Normally, Yang Ruoxu would not be the inner sect disciple who represented the academy. In the academy, there were at least 5 people who were superior to Yang Ruoxu in terms of combat strength, status, and background. Pang Yu was one of the 5 people. One could imagine how much hostility Yang Ruoxu suffered in the inner sect. Although there were some conflicts between the two sides and they could not see eye to eye, they were in the Qingquan Academy after all. At least on the surface, they maintained peace and rarely fought. It was only until the rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu spread during the Immortal Sect selection 1,000 years ago that this peace was broken. These rumors directly pushed Yang Ruoxu to the forefront of the storm. Over the past 1,000 years, Yang Ruoxu and the inner sect disciples had fought and exchanged pointers on the sword discourse arena many times. Su Zimo was also a very important person in the Immortal Sect selection 1,000 years ago. Like Yang Ruoxu, he came from the lower world and was someone who Yang Ruoxu had protected. Wrinkles piled up on Pang Yu's face, making him look like an old man who could die at any moment. Even his clear eyes turned turbid and yellow. Gradually, the surrounding cultivators noticed Pang Yu's abnormality as well. "Hurry, look. What's wrong with Senior Brother Pang?" Heavens, why did Senior Brother Pang turn into this in the blink of an eye? Under the gazes of the crowd, Pang Yu's figure that was originally as straight as a sword became hunched, and his entire body shrunk. The commotion in the crowd grew louder. The gazes with which everyone looked at Pang Yu were inexplicably shocked. "WW, what's wrong with me?" Pang Yu's voice trembled slightly. The moment he spoke, he realized that his voice had turned incomparably old. Pang Yu simply could not believe that such a voice had come from his mouth. "Senior Brother Pang, why is your lifespan?" Yang Ruoxu's eyes widened as well, not knowing what was going on. He could clearly sense that Pang Yu's lifespan was almost depleted. The lifespan of a heaven immortal was 300,000 years. Right now, Pang Yu was only a few 100,000 years old and was at his peak. However, right now, Pang Yu's lifespan was almost depleted and he could die at any moment. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. "WB, my lifespan?" Pang Yu's wrinkled lips quivered. At the same time, he realized what was happening to his body. His lifespan was depleted and he was about to die. This was even more frightening than being severely injured or having his essence spirit damaged. Even if his essence spirit was damaged, there was still a chance of recovery. However, the depletion of one's lifespan meant true death. Eventually, Pang Yu glared at Yang Ruoxu with murky eyes and panted heavily, his eyes filled with hatred. However, he froze for a moment when he caught sight of the confused Yang Ruoxu. Just now, it was impossible for Yang Ruoxu to release such power after merely attacking and taking a single blow head-on. Furthermore, judging from Yang Ruoxu's expression, he did not seem to know what was going on either. However, if it was not Yang Ruoxu, who could it be? Who was attacking him in the dark? A thought flashed through Pang Yu's mind before he died. His gaze shifted and landed on the green-robed cultivator behind Yang Ruoxu. At that moment, the green-robed cultivator looked at him coldly with a calm expression, not surprised at all. Suddenly, Pang Yu recalled that just now, someone seemed to have said, "Fleeting youth," on the battlefield. It's you." Pang Yu raised his arm with great difficulty and pointed at Su Zimo from afar. Su Zimo's direction was where Yang Ruoxu was. In everyone's eyes, the person Pang Yu was pointing at was naturally Yang Ruoxu. Just now, the battle was intense and Su Zimo's growl was almost drowned out by Yang Ruoxu's shout. No one noticed it. Who would have thought that a grade 8 Earth Immortal would be able to release a supreme divine power? However, right after Yang Ruoxu's sword stabbed out, Tang Peng's figure suddenly appeared and extended his sharp golden claws, grabbing down. Yang Ruoxu's sword met it at the right time. Clang. When the sword and claws collided, an ear-piercing sound of metal could be heard. Tang Peng shuddered slightly and left once more in a flash. He was extremely fast and was only a streak of light left on the sword discourse arena. The outer sect disciples could not catch up to his movement technique at all. Even with Su Zimo's vision, he could not lock onto Tang Peng and could only see afterimages. Su Zimo only looked at it for a short while before he felt dizzy. He was secretly shocked. The inner sect disciples of the academy were way too strong. If Pang Yu had not been distracted by Yang Ruoxu and was not prepared for momentary youth, he would not have been defeated in a single strike. Tang Peng obtained a great opportunity when he was young and managed to change his bloodline with his marrow. With the bloodline of the great rock race flowing through his body, he was born with shocking speed. Within the inner sect, Tang Peng's movement technique was number 1. Chapter 2179. An outer sect disciple like you has no right to speak here. Get lost. After Su Zimo said that, Fong Qingyun was expressionless. Before he could reply, Tang Peng could not help but stand out and berate. "Ha!" Su Zimo burst into laughter and asked again, "What's wrong? If senior brother Fong can do something like taking advantage of others, why can't others criticize him?" In the academy, even inner sect disciples would not dare to say such words in front of Fong Qingyun. The crowd was shocked and their expressions changed. Ever since Fong Qingyun appeared, he had a calm expression with no emotions. However, at this moment, his expression changed slightly and he narrowed his eyes. His gaze shifted and landed on Su Zimo. When Su Zimo noticed Fong Qingyun's gaze, he was even more certain. Just now, Fong Qingyun's words and actions revealed a domineering aura. Furthermore, he was the number 1 of the inner sect and was definitely extremely conceited and valued reputation. Now that everyone was watching, even if he wanted to take revenge for Pang Yu as soon as possible, he had no choice but to compromise. Otherwise, even if he won, it would be an unfair victory and he would be taking advantage of others. His reputation in the inner sect and the academy would be greatly affected. True enough. Fong Qingyun took a deep breath of air and said slowly, "Junior brother Yang, I'll give you time to recuperate. I'll wait here. I'll wait for you to recover before we fight." This battle was inevitable. Yang Ruoxu did not explain and merely cupped his fists slightly before sitting down cross-legged. For Su Zimo, he had already achieved his goal. The reason why he stood out and said those words was to buy time. Firstly, it was time for Yang Ruoxu to recuperate. Secondly, it was time for Qiankuan Academy to react. If enough time passed, this matter would continue to ferment and spread to the inner sect or even the legacy disciples, attracting law enforcers with higher statuses of the academy to come and uphold justice. Fong Qingyun was only the number 1 of the inner sect. Su Zimo did not believe that Fong Qingyun alone could reign supreme in the academy. "What's your name?" Just as Su Zimo was pondering, he suddenly felt 2 sharp gazes shoot over. Fong Qingyun's voice sounded slowly. "Su Zimo." Su Zimo said calmly. "Oh." Fong Qingyun's brows raised slightly and he said, "So, it's you." Tang Peng and Yen Bingying had also descended onto the sword discourse arena and stood behind Fong Qingyun. Yen Binging looked coldly at Su Zimo and did not hide the disdain in her eyes. She said, "So you are also a servant. No wonder you don't know the rules." At this moment, several figures rushed over from the direction of the inner gate. The leader of the group was a little older than Fang Qingyun and the others. Even though the token by his waist was also an inner disciple token, his aura was far more powerful than that of Fang Qingyun and the others. Most likely, the old man leading the group was a true immortal. The enforcement elders of the outer sect were mostly at the first or second stage of the celestial immortal realm. Only then would he have enough power and means to enforce the law in the outer sect. Su Zimo thought to himself, if that's the case, then this true immortal old man is most likely the inner sect's enforcement elder, Elder Jian. Right then, Yang Ruoxu opened his eyes. When he saw who it was, his expression relaxed as he murmured softly. Tang Pang and Yen Binging frowned slightly when they saw Elder Jian. Fang Qingyun was still expressionless and merely looked deeply at Su Zimo. He gradually realized that Su Zimo's provocation just now was most likely to stall for time and wait for the others from the academy to arrive. What's going on? After Elder Jian arrived, he surveyed the surroundings and finally looked at the crowd on the sword discourse arena and asked in a deep voice. She frowned and scolded, "Little butterfly, you're hurting people again. Why aren't you coming back?" The Academy's core disciples all knew that this ice butterfly was Fairy Mo Qing's immortal pet. Normally, it would never leave Fairy Mo Qing's side and would only listen to her. But strangely, when it heard Fairy Mo Qing's call today, the ice butterfly did not immediately return. It continued to dance around Yang Ruoxu and Su Zimo. Seeing this, a dark look flashed across the Moonlight Sword Immortal's eyes. At this moment, Fairy Mo Qing also noticed Yang Ruoxu and Su Zimo and realized that something was wrong here. "What's going on here?" Fairy Mo Qing asked. Elder Jian coughed softly and was about to speak when he suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill. It was as if a sharp sword was hanging by his neck. He could not help but shiver. His eyes turned and looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal in midair. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was expressionless and did not say a word. She only glanced at him indifferently. But with this glance, Elder Jian knew that the Moonlight Sword Immortal was warning him. Although he was an inner sect disciplinary elder, his cultivation and status were far from the Moonlight Sword Immortals. The Moonlight Sword Immortal was one of the top 3 core disciples in the academy. Elder Jian sighed in his heart and did not say anything. Xiao Li saw the Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression and understood. He smiled and said, "Senior Sister Mo Qing, it's nothing. It's just a small conflict between outer sect disciples. Let them handle it." Fairy Mo Qing nodded. Su Zimo looked at Yang Ruoxu in front of him. At this moment, Yang Ruoxu lowered his eyes and did not speak. He did not even look at Fairy Mo Qing, as if he did not want to argue for himself. Su Zimo was confused. Fairy Mo Qing's appearance was Yang Ruoxu's only chance. Why did he not argue for himself? Soon, Su Zimo thought of something and understood. There were already many rumors between Yang Ruoxu and Fairy Mo Qing. At this moment, if Yang Ruoxu stood up and argued for himself and asked Fairy Mo Qing for help, it would be difficult to clear the air between the two of them. The rumors would spread even more. Yang Ruoxu did not speak because he was worried about Fairy Mo Qing's reputation. Anyone could stand out and say this, except for Yang Ruoxu. Thinking of this, Su Zimo stood up. The others were intimidated by the Moonlight Sword Immortal and did not dare to speak, afraid of offending these core disciples. However, Su Zimo was not afraid. Yang Ruoxu would help him take on this matter. He would not let Yang Ruoxu bear the pressure of the Moonlight Sword Immortal and the others alone. Moreover, he had already had conflicts with the Moonlight Sword Immortal. "Greetings, Senior Sister Mo Qing." Su Zimo cupped his hands and said loudly, "The cause of this matter is me." Fairy Mo Qing did not linger for a moment longer, nor did she look at Yang Ruoxu and Su Zimo. She turned and left with the ice butterfly. "Senior brother." Xiao Li and the others looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal and called out softly. Let's go too. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's expression changed and the auspicious cloud beneath her feet drifted towards the outer sect of the academy. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared from the sights of many cultivators. After leaving the academy, Xiao Li harumphed coldly and complained with a displeased expression, "It's all the third elder's fault. How could he have the right to interfere in such trivial matters in the outer sect?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal did not say anything, but her expression was dark. "Senior brother, it should be a coincidence that senior sister Mo Qing appeared this time round, right?" Xiao Li probed. Another person shook his head and said, "Once is a coincidence, twice is still a coincidence?" Hearing this, the Moonlight Sword Immortal's figure paused for a moment. Her eyes narrowed, revealing waves of sharpness and murderous intent. Originally, when the Moonlight Sword Immortal heard the rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu, although she was displeased, she did not take it seriously. In her eyes, Yang Ruoxu was just an inner sect disciple from the lower world with a cultivation level of level 9 Heaven Immortal. The difference between the painting immortal Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu was just too great. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Why would junior sister Mo Qing like Yang Ruoxu? The Moonlight Sword Immortal did not see Yang Ruoxu as an opponent at all. She did not even put him in her eyes. But this time, the Moonlight Sword Immortal could not help but be suspicious. In the Qianquan Academy, it was no secret that he was pursuing Fairy Mo Qing. At least many of the core disciples knew about it. However, Fairy Mo Qing had never agreed after so many years. Perhaps it was because she was obsessed with the painting Dao, or perhaps there was some other reason. The Moonlight Sword Immortal did not give up either. Although there were many people in the academy who admired Fairy Mo Qing, there wasn't anyone who dared to openly pursue her. No one dared to offend the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and no one dared to test his Moonlight Sword. Today, the Moonlight Sword Immortal felt threatened. That insignificant inner sect disciple in his eyes seemed to really have an inexplicable relationship with junior sister Mo Qing. Mo Qing had a quiet temperament and did not hesitate to fight. She was obsessed with the painting Dao. Normally, she would not appear in an event like the Immortal Sect's selection. But 1,000 years ago, Mo Qing appeared in the Coiling Dragon Mountain range and saved Yang Ruoxu. It was the same today. There was another piece of evidence. That ice butterfly only obeyed Mo Qing's orders. Chapter 2183. Qianquan Academy. Now that the matter was over, the cultivators gradually dispersed. However, the shock and impact caused by this matter would last for a long time in the academy. After Su Zimo joined the outer sect, he went into seclusion to cultivate and almost never showed himself. This time, almost all of the outer sect disciples knew that there was a ruthless person among them. He had killed a law enforcement elder in front of everyone, which had startled the inner sect disciples and the core sect disciples. In the end, he had escaped unscathed. Although he had only fought with Elder Teng once, he had already become famous in the academy. On the sword discourse arena, Su Zimo bowed deeply to Yang Ruoxu and said sincerely, "Thank you for your help, senior brother Yang." In fact, Elder Teng and Pang Yu on the sword discourse arena were both killed by Su Zimo. If Yang Ruoxu had not taken all the pressure for him, he would have most likely been killed by Tang Peng and the rest before the core disciples appeared. "You don't have to thank me." Yang Ruoxu shook his head slightly and said, "Actually, your calamity is related to me." That Elder Teng was on good terms with Fang Qingyun and the rest. He actually wanted to target me, but you were implicated. Su Zimo frowned and asked, "I see that Fang Qingyun and the rest have a deep grudge against senior brother Yang. Is it just because you came from the lower world?" "That's only one of the reasons." Yang Ruoxu pondered for a while and said, "In the academy, the outer sect is still all right. The competition between disciples of the same sect isn't that obvious. However, the inner sect and core disciples of the academy are full of open and secret fights. All these years, I can't compare to Fang Qingyun and the rest in terms of talent, background, and combat strength. However, I represented the academy in hosting the Immortal Sect selection, which naturally caused dissatisfaction. There's also another reason. At this point, Yang Ruoxu suddenly paused and shook his head. He did not continue. Su Zimo thought for a while and understood. This reason was probably because of painting fairy Mo Qing. The rumors from 1,000 years ago pushed Yang Ruoxu and fairy Mo Qing to the forefront of the storm. The disciples of the academy naturally did not dare to criticize fairy Mo Qing, but their hostility toward Yang Ruoxu gradually deepened. Moreover, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was pursuing fairy Mo Qing. Even if the Moonlight Sword Immortal did not take the initiative to do so, there would probably be people who would target Yang Ruoxu in order to curry favor with the Moonlight Sword Immortal. In other words, no one in the academy dared to stand beside Yang Ruoxu. Traveling with Yang Ruoxu meant becoming enemies with the Moonlight Sword Immortal. After today, this situation would become more and more obvious. In the academy, Yang Ruoxu would be completely isolated. From now on, try not to have any contact with me in the academy. Yang Ruoxu suddenly said. Although his expression was calm, there was a trace of disappointment and loneliness in the depths of his eyes. Senior brother Yang, Su Zimo called out softly. Just as he was about to console her, Yang Ruoxu patted him on the shoulder and smiled. You're good. Not bad at all. That time mystic power was truly stunning. However, try not to use it in front of others in the future. At the very least, don't reveal this divine ability before you reach the celestial immortal realm. Su Zimo was puzzled and asked, the elders of the academy have already closed the coffin for today's matter. Is there anyone in the academy who dares to take revenge in private? Of course, no one in the academy dares to take revenge in private, Yang Ruoxu said. However, Pang Yu's background is quite noble. The Pang family is considered a big family in the divine firmament celestial realm with a long history. Although they can't compare to the 3 major celestial kingdoms and the 4 major celestial sects, the Pang family's strength is not to be underestimated. There are many prodigies in the family and even a celestial king. They are not to be trifled with. Pang Yu is a prodigy of the Pang family. The Pang family will not let this matter rest. When Su Zimo heard that, he finally understood. Yang Ruoxu had told him not to admit it not only because she was worried about the pressure from the academy, but also the threat from the Pang family outside the academy. Originally, these threats were all going to fall on his head. But now, Yang Ruoxu had taken them on alone. Yang Ruoxu looked at Su Zimo's worried eyes and suddenly smiled. You don't have to worry. Although the Pang family is powerful, they won't dare to find trouble with me in the academy. When I break through, condense my Tao fruit, become a perfected immortal, and become a true disciple of the academy, they might not dare to touch me even outside the academy. No matter which faction a perfected immortal disciple was in, they were the core existence and had the protection of a celestial king. Senior brother Yang, you are so powerful. At that moment, Princess Chi Hong rushed over and landed on the sword discourse arena. She bowed to Yang Ruoxu and praised him. Seeing that there were outsiders, Yang Ruoxu stopped talking about this matter. He looked at Su Zimo and said, the 10,000-year meeting is about to begin. Your cultivation level has not reached the peak of stage 9. I'm afraid there will be a tough battle for the Earth Board. Don't think that you can easily take first place in the Earth Board just because you killed more than 100 Executioner Earth Guards in the Immortal Sect selection. In the 10,000-year meeting, there will be many geniuses competing for first place in the Earth Board. These people might not lose to you in terms of their methods. You must not be careless. Su Zimo nodded. Suddenly, a figure flashed across his mind and he asked, will Yunting go? Yunting, Duke of the Zhixian Celestial Kingdom? Yang Ruoxu was familiar with this name. He shook his head and said, he won't go. According to the news I received, he has already become a sky immortal. That's fast. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with a trace of shock. Then there was a trace of pity. Yang Ruoxu noticed Su Zimo's gaze and could not help but ask, you actually feel a little regretful when you heard that Duke Yunting is not participating in the Earth Board? Do you see Duke Yunting as an opponent? Su Zimo nodded and said, there will be a battle between us sooner or later. He had the heavenly slaughter and earthly slaughter sword arts. Yunting had the human slaughter sword art. Both of them wanted to snatch the other's sword arts and merge the three great sword arts. You dare to see Yunting as an opponent? Impressive. Yang Ruoxu nodded slightly.